So I wanted to show a day in the life of a senior software engineer or web developer and an example of the kind of tasks that you might have to do in a real corporate environment working as a senior software engineer. And in this example, we're going to take a look at a web application of a real life example task that I had to recently complete just a couple weeks ago. And I think that you'll find that the kind of work that you do is quite different from the sort of LeetCode exercises that you might have to take during the interview process, and that the actual work that you're doing could be quite a bit easier. With that, let me show you an example of what we're looking at dealing with here. So this is the web application. I have here an AngularJS web form. I just put this together as an example really quick, but you can see it's using Material UI. So we have some fancy CSS reactions, some fields set here, and of course, you can enter information. There is no validation in this form, and that's actually one of the things that I'm going to show you how to add, which is one of the tasks that I was given to do. So we have some pretty radio buttons and check boxes, and of course, a submit button, all with the sort of Google Android style UI. Now, the goal of this particular ticket that I was given to work on was to maximize the width of this form to be full screen. So if I size the form horizontally like this, you can kind of see how maybe it's a little bit hard in the video, but the form is not actually centering. It's not even taking up, it's not centering, it's not taking up the whole screen. So there's all of this gap over here and over here on the other side that you can see. And we're going to try and adjust this and make it a full screen web form. And that's really the goal of this task. So this is a really common example of something that you might be given to do in a corporate job working as a senior software engineer or web developer, is to take a web form like this that's centered on the screen horizontally and make it full screen. So let's take a look at the code and see how we can do something like that. So here in VS Code, I have the AngularJS project. This is running Angular 20. You can see right here, if we look, there's the version of Angular. This is good to know, just so you have an idea of what you're working with. If we take a look at material, it is indeed using material CSS. That's the next thing that you want to identify. Okay, great. So let's take a look at the code for rendering this form, which is inside. Is it inside home? Is it inside business profile form? So this is one of the things that you'll need to do, is to figure out where is the code located. So if we take a look at the home component, well, this is rendering a child component, which is probably where the business form is. And this kind of gives you a clue of where you need to go. Let's just take a look at the TypeScript just to be sure. So yes, there are no form fields defined in here, which means that business profile form located here is probably the file with the actual HTML. So we'll expand into the actual form, and sure enough, here it is. There. By the way, we could have also done a find all file search, which is another really great way. Edit find in files, type in something from the form field, which was business name, and that will also help you identify where in the code that you need to modify to make these changes. So now that we've identified the form, we need to figure out how can we make this form take up the full width of the page, which it's not currently doing. So first thing I always like to do is just to confirm this is the right form, because there could be different areas in the software that have the name business name. So let's just do something like this, right? Just put a couple of ones there. We'll save the file, and then we'll go back into the browser. And sure enough, you can see here how the label for this field has changed, right? So we know it's the right field. So, okay, back into VS Code, we're going to make this full width. So First, notice that the form is using a class, app business profile form. So this is a hint. It's not using inline styles, which is good. A lot of projects that you'll work with will be using inline CSS styles, which is a bit dirtier. But we can go into the CSS file, and sure enough, this is nice and clean. So this is a good sign. It makes the project a little bit easier to manage. And we can see here, this is probably the class that's controlling the width of the form. So specifically, if you look at max width, 800 pixels. So, okay, so we wanted to take up the full page, right? Well, what if we make it 100 pixels? Let's just make sure that actually affects the result. So if we take a look back at, yep, sure enough, you look at the browser and now it's only 100 pixels wide. So now we're getting somewhere. So what if we just said it, okay, let's just make it 1,000 pixels, right? 1,000 pixels in width. So the problem with this is that, yes, we're getting closer to it taking up the whole page, but your manager's not going to be happy with this. Your team lead is not going to be happy with this because the moment you size the browser wider, you're going to have to change that width again. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go back into the CSS? Okay, let's make it 1600 pixels, right? Take a look at the result. Okay, well, that's looking better now. But again, if you resize the browser more, you're going to still have all of this space. So that's not the way to fix this. Instead, we need to make this dynamic. So I'm going to put this back to 800 pixels for max width. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to apply a style to this, and we're going to change the max width. So one way to do that is to right there in your form, we're going to do style equals, and we're going to set the max width. So we're going to override the max width of this form with 95 of the view width, right? So VW is like 95% of the view width. So we'll save that. Let's take a look at what this gives us. So if we take a look back at the browser, now that looks good. This is taking up the full width. Now what happens if we resize the browser? Take a look at that. You see how it is upholding the 95%? So the form is now taking up the entire width of the page. It's taking up the full width. It's not shrinking, which is great. And if we shrink the form widthwise, you can see that it's fully responsive. It's reacting appropriately, even mobile or desktop. And this looks pretty good, right? This looks pretty good. So your team will probably be happy with this result. It's performing exactly the way that we would expect, resizing responsively. But we used an inline style here, right? So we overrode the default style, and this is not the cleanest way to do this. So here's where the refactoring comes in. So after you've completed a task on a real world project like this for your job, you're going to want to make it clean and reusable and maintainable. I know this is just a CSS style. It's only one inline style, but with enough of these, they'll end up cluttering up your entire HTML, and it becomes sort of a really cumbersome CSS solution to maintain. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this out and we're going to define a new style for this. The way to do that is we'll go into the CSS, and what we'll do is we'll define a new class. So we're going to go like this. Let me just stick that here. We're going to take the max width, and we're going to very well define this specifically to the div that we're targeting. Right? Let me just copy that one more time. I think I lost it. Okay. There we go. Now you could just create another whole new class, but I like to make it very specific. So what we'll do is we'll override, we'll add to the same class, and we'll call it full width. And what we're going to define here is we're just going to put that max width inside this class and call it full width. So we can now save that CSS, right? And then if we take a look back at the HTML, now, if we look at the HTML, it's going to be back to the problem, right? So here's that space again because we took out the inline style. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the CSS and we're just going to add onto it the class full width. And we're going to use this overridden class. And now if we take a look at the result, you can see we are back to taking up the full width. It's resizing appropriately. It's fully responsive. There's the mobile version. There's the desktop version. And this is looking very nice. So this is a clean solution. We're not using classes. We're not using inline styles. And we've overridden a very specific style with just one small change. This makes for a very easy pull request. It makes it easy for your code review because you're editing less code, you're modifying less files. And this would be a really good solution that your team would probably be happy with. Let me know in the comments if there's a better way to do this or an alternative solution. I think this is a clean approach. And I want to show one more thing. Remember how there was no client-side validation on this form? Well, let's suppose that another typical actual job activity that you might be given, a ticket, would be to add client-side validation and, of course, server-side validation to this as well. I'll save the server-side validation for another video, only because I don't have a server-side application hooked up to this. I just have an AngularJS client. But let's say we want to validate the business name to be between 4 and 40 characters. So right now you can type in whatever you want and it'll accept it, right? So if we want to add validation to this, Angular actually makes this very easy to do. So the way that you do that is we're going to define a model variable for business name. And I've already added that in right here. You would add that for all of the form fields that you want to add validation for. Just define them inside the class business profile form. I already have business name and it's a string. So we don't have to do that right now. And then what you'll do is you're just going to replace the input field that we have here. And we're going to define an ng model and give the business name input ng model. And here we're going to specify min length is 4, max length is 40. And Angular gives you this with Material UI for free. So if you need to do custom validation, that's another story. But we're keeping it simple. We're going to use the built-in styles. And you can see we can define it right here, min length and max length. Now, once you've done that, you will still need to add in the Material UI errors. So we can do that right here after the input element. We'll just add in these error conditions. So we're going to do, if there's an error with max length, it must be between, first it has to be required. If there's an error with min length or max length, we print out an associated error. So if we save this now and we take a look at the result, you can see now, I don't think we'll even have to refresh the page. No, we don't even have to refresh it. So you can see it's now validating that we have to have at least 4 characters and it's real time. So there, the error's gone. Test business. If we make it too long, over 40 characters, it won't even let you type beyond 40 characters. So you won't even get that error actually. I wonder if you can copy and paste it in. I don't think that will work. No, it won't even let you enter more than 40 characters, which is great. That's exactly what you want. So again, if you do it too short, you get the error. If you type it correct, say it must be at least 4 characters, it must be required. And of course, the 40 character length, we won't actually get to see that. So That's pretty much it. And you can see if we scroll down, everything else is set to go. And of course, you can submit the form. I haven't hooked that up in Angular. I just want to show the client side validation, but most importantly, the responsive full width example of a real world task that you would be given as a senior software engineer web developer. So I hope this has given you an eye-opening experience to some of the very easy tasks. I guess easy. Maybe they're a little bit more challenging for some people and easier for others. But this is an idea of how you would typically work with a task in a corporate environment as a senior software engineer. So the steps that we went through is first, number one, identifying which form or file in the application needs to be modified. Number two, getting an understanding of the framework and what version that you're using. In this case, it was Angular 20 and Material UI. And then identifying the form field in the file to edit, and then making the change, testing it, and then refactoring it to make sure that you have a clean, reusable, and maintainable solution. So if you'd like to see more of this, maybe I could do a next demo of showing server-side validation or even submission of the form. And let me know in the comments, like and subscribe if you enjoy this material and I can show more. Thanks.